Welcome to my secret channel, Emerald, where I ramble about whatever I feel like in the laziest format possible. Can you believe? I can believe it, but maybe you can't believe that I have not made a video on something that was not related to the Tuaru series since July 16th of 2022. It is just short of 2 years of me talking about something other than Tuaru on this channel, even though I hardly even make videos anymore here. But that aside, we're changing that today. Today, I am talking about Stellar Blade, the new PS5 game. Well, it's new for me. Who knows when I'll upload this video? Maybe it won't be new anymore. Maybe it'll be your grandma's favorite game by the time this video goes up. But I just got the second main, I'm doing air quotes right now, second main ending for Stellar Blade. The only ending I have not gotten is the one that I'm going to call the secret ending. I don't know if that's actually if that actually is a fitting description of what it is, but we'll talk about that in a second. I should just say I will be talking about spoilers in this video, and I'm going to say TLDR, I love this game a lot. I might even say that it's a masterpiece. I might. In fact, I think I would. And so I have to say, if you have not played this game, I don't really want you to watch this video, especially if you have any interest in playing this game at all and experiencing all of it for yourself, because I think it is totally worth it. This is a very fun, exciting game with a very thrilling story that I would not want to spoil for anyone. So if you have not played this game and you have any intentions, even just the most minimal amount of interest whatsoever in playing this game or in playing this game in the future, I'm telling you, do not watch this video. Don't look up anything about this game. Just wait until you are able to get it or you do play it and then enjoy it for yourself, because that will be a lot more fun for you. So you have been warned, okay? Now anything that you're spoiled on from this point forward is all your fault. It's your fault, okay? Now, I suspect there's probably not actually a lot of people that watch this channel. Well, there's not really a lot of people that watch this channel in the first place. But there's probably very few people that have actually even played this game, because I hardly know anyone that even has a PS5. I think I know 3 people total that have a PlayStation 5. So maybe I'll just be screaming into the void for most of this video. But that's okay, because you know what? I made this channel with 0 subscribers, and that's like all I did at the beginning. And so I just talked into the void. But if you have played this game, let me know what you thought about it in the comments. That's my favorite part of this channel, is reading people's comments. I always invite people to write an essay if you feel like writing an essay, because I'll read your essay if it's in my comments section. But absolutely, let me know what you think about this game if you've played it. And one last time, I recommend playing the game before you listen any further if you have not. And I would even recommend getting at least like the 2 main endings. So, Stellar Blade. I already kind of gave the TLDR, but I loved this game to death. This is the most fun I've had playing a video game in years, especially a new video game. I don't think I've enjoyed a new game this much since, I guess, Nier Replicant came out, when Nier Replicant came out. And that doesn't even really count, because that was a remake. So if we're not including that, then I guess I would say this is the most fun I've had playing a game since Persona 5 Royal, and that's also not really a good one to count, because that was also kind of something of a remake, an enhanced version, if you will. Anyways, it's been a long time since I've played a game that I have been this captivated by and enthralled by. Okay, I thought of an example. 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim. Whenever that game came out, what, 2019, 2020? I don't know, something like that. Maybe 2021, I don't remember. That was probably the last new game that I enjoyed this much. But this is a game that I think checked like just about every single box for me personally. And we'll get into all of it. First of all, a bit of a background into what it's been like waiting for this game, because I remember Stellar Blade, I watched the announcement, the initial announcement of Stellar Blade, which was initially called Project Eve, all the way back in 2019. I think it was for the very first, maybe the second PS5 showcase that we got that trailer. And I knew when I saw that trailer that this game was going to be pretty cool. The first trailer was really, really awesome back when it came out. And that was just a concept all the way back then. And I have been checking up on the status of this game ever since then. Ever since then, it would just pop into my mind, what about that Project Eve game that was announced like a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago? It's like almost like a yearly thing where I would just check up on what was up with this game. I almost thought it got canceled. God bless the fact that it didn't. But nevertheless, it has been a very long time coming. I've been waiting a very long time for this game, and I would have to say it was well worth the wait. And a bit of a funny story is that I actually bought this game. I ordered this game before I even had a PS5. So it arrived. I ordered it on Amazon because I like getting games physically. Just maybe I'm weird, but I do. So I ordered this game on Amazon, and I got it before I even had a PS5 because I just really wanted to buy this game even if I couldn't play it immediately. And so I got a new job, and that helped, and so I was able to save some money to buy a PS5 just so I could play this game. I'm telling you, it was calling me. The game was calling me. And everything I saw about it made me just want to support the game. It looked awesome. And I'll talk about this later, but it seemed to have taken a lot of inspiration from Nier Automata, which is my favorite game of all time. And so I find a lot of people would say, oh, it's not being original, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, well, whatever. I don't care. If you're going to take it, first of all, everyone takes inspiration from something else. It's more so a matter of how you use that inspiration. And I think this game, by the end of it all, did a wonderful job to kind of create its own identity apart from Nier Automata, which I think a lot of people kind of unfairly are calling a ripoff or a clone. We'll get into that. But I really wanted to support this game immediately. There's also a lot of really, what I believe was really unfair, unwarranted criticisms, which I'm doing in air quotes again because I don't even really think they were valid critiques. But yeah, anyways, I bought this game before I even bought a PS5. And then I bought a PS5 just to play this game because it looked so cool to me. And I just felt like I was going to really enjoy it. And then I ended up enjoying it far more than I actually thought I was going to. Admittedly, in recent years, I've kind of dropped a lot of gaming out of my life just because a lot of video games just don't hit as hard as they used to for me. And I found myself just kind of out of obligation finishing things that were just like a 7 out of 10, which nothing wrong with the 7 out of 10 game. Gaming is not really my biggest hobby or anything. It's not really my biggest passion or anything. So I don't really get much value out of just playing a bunch of games that are just all right. So yeah, I'm very picky about what I do play now. So just to actually get into the content of the game now, I just want to say immediately, the game is like a slap in the face, a really good slap in the face though, like one that's kind of enjoyable. Because right out of the gate, the visual presentation of it is extremely cool, and the music, I will have a lot to say about the music. The music is very epic. It's very epic. Those are the words I'm going to use. Very epic. The opening sequence of the game is extremely hype. It's a great introduction to the game, which is it's always really important because like if the first hour of a game is boring, then it kind of, then at that point, you're kind of just looking for a reason to stop playing and put it aside. At least I am. Maybe other people are probably more patient than me. But if a game does not catch me relatively quickly, there's a good chance I may just not continue it. And the very beginning of this game is just a fantastic intro to it all. I'm not going to recap the whole story because then we'd be here all day and I don't want this to be that long of a video. But right from the very beginning, we get Eve, who seems somewhat, I don't know if docile is the right word, but she seems overwhelmed by the situation, and she's being carried forward by her I am assuming like her best friend, Takibana, who serves as her sort of guide in this invasion that they're starting as they've landed on Earth from space and they're killing all these Naytiba, which Naytiba, if you haven't played and you're still listening for some reason, Naytiba are these crazy, gross monster things that are occupying Earth, and they're slaughtering everyone. So her best friend Taki is serving as her guide. She's teaching her, she's encouraging her, and then by the end of this opening sequence, we encounter a particularly strong Naytiba, the first alpha Naytiba that we see, which is what they call the strongest of the Naytibas, the alpha Naytiba, who kills Taki, who jumps in front of Eve to save her life. So right out of the box, we've got a motivation to kill this guy and kill a bunch of other Naytiba. And one thing I have to note is how different Eve is from this opening portion of the game to the following parts. Something I noticed about Eve, especially when I replayed the game, because I've now beaten it twice, is that Eve is a lot more mature as the game has progressed from the very beginning to the end. Eve is a lot more mature. She's not necessarily numb to death around her. She obviously still has an emotional reaction to it, but she is not surprised by death, and she's sort of accepting of the circumstances around her as a result of what happened to her in that opening sequence. And it happened so naturally that I didn't even think about it until when I beat the game the first time and I started New Game Plus. I noticed just how different the tonality of Eve's voice was in the opening section of this game. She speaks, and I played in Korean, the Korean voices, because I didn't want to play the English dub. But I played with the Korean voices, and in Eve's voice, she comes off as a lot less confident, a lot more timid in this opening section, and that changes a lot throughout the course of the game. And I'll talk more about the characters in depth later, but I wanted to note that particular detail that I noticed from this opening section and then onward. So then onward from that point in the game does not really let off of the brakes very much at all. It will let off the brakes if you particularly want to take the time to take off the brakes, if that makes sense. But if you were just playing through the story of this game, you would be experiencing, I would say, a pretty fast-paced, upbeat kind of experience. This game is filled to the brim with just tons of bosses, and I love the boss fights in this game so much. I want to talk about the gameplay, because Stellar Blade, in my opinion, well, I'm going to say this. I think Stellar Blade has my favorite gameplay of any game I have ever played, especially action RPGs, and I love action JRPGs. That's probably not a surprise because I said Nier Automata is my favorite game of all time, which is an action JRPG. But I have to say, Stellar Blade's combat is just so fun. It's really flashy, but there's still so much substance, which I find is a problem with a lot of modern games. A lot of modern games that have action sort of combat is they want to be really flashy, but then there's not really much substance to the gameplay. And then there's games that have a ton of substance, but they're not very flashy. I would kind of say the From Software games like the Dark Souls and stuff is kind of like that. There's a ton of substance, but like in the Soulsborne games and stuff, you, the protagonist, your moves are not very flashy at all, really. The enemies are, but you're not. And Stellar Blade is like the perfect balance of being just really like cinematically cool and flashy, but also having a lot of substance, because the game, in my opinion, is the right kind of challenging. Certain parts will definitely be easier and harder than others. That's going to happen in basically every game ever made. But I just particularly love how challenging the right moments are in this game. There were a lot of boss fights where I had to try over and over and over again to learn the pattern. You really have to get good at parrying and dodging in this game. I would say especially parrying, which feels really good to do it. Like, it feels good to get a perfect parry. And I really had to learn a lot of these fights, especially towards the end when I was playing on hard mode, when I unlocked that for New Game Plus. The last 5 bosses of the game, I was getting absolutely decimated, and I had to really learn the fights to be able to overcome them. And it was a ton of fun. I'm not usually into games that are like super stupid hard. Like, I don't have an interest in playing the From Software games because they look hard in a really frustrating way and a very penalizing way. I think that's what probably bothers me more, is how penalizing the From Software games can be at times. Is like, oh, if you die in this fight, you have to go through this very long chain of events again to get to that fight, just for another opportunity in which you'll probably die again and have to go all the way back again. I don't really like that. Some people really like that because it feels really rewarding. I get it. I mean, I feel rewarded even when I'm just like starting the fight from the close to the beginning of it. But the fights in Stellar Blade, they're so fun to learn. They can be a little frustrating, but I found myself having way more fun opposed to getting mad. I didn't really hardly get mad at all throughout the game, which I think says a lot for a game that I am saying is challenging, because usually if a game is hard, I'm gonna be getting a little angry, But let me give an example. So, and then this is gonna be a spoiler, okay, for a name of a boss. But the Belial fights. You fight this one enemy named Belial, and you actually have to fight him twice. And this is pretty close to the end of the game. And this guy had one combo. It was just 3 hits that would kill me instantly at max HP. At max HP, this one 3-hit combo would kill me instantly. And once you get hit by the first attack, you can't parry, block, or dodge the other 2 attacks. So if you get hit by the one attack before you guard or dodge or anything, you just die. You just die. So the game teaches you to react better to the bosses, as opposed to, I don't know, just like getting all the best equipment in the game, which is not really a factor in this game. Because another thing about the gameplay is that as you level up, which it's not really much of a level up, your stats don't actually increase. I don't think they do, at least. If they do, it's like extremely subtle. I don't think your stats actually increase at all. Instead, as you level up, you can unlock more skills that allow you to do more things that aren't even necessarily always just like your attacks are stronger. Sometimes that's the case, like certain skills you can make stronger. But in my opinion, the difference is not entirely negligible, but it's not necessarily a huge game changer. At most, you can just unlock more abilities that give you more options, or you can upgrade your health and stuff. Like, you can upgrade your health bar. And that's one of the only like explicit sort of upgrades you can do to like your own character's sort of strength, if you want to call it that. And then there is equipment in the sense of there's these attachment things you can put on that'll give you some sort of benefits. They're not really huge game-changing benefits. And I know because I put on these 2 pieces of equipment at the end of the game. I only did this for the end of the game because I wanted to do an offensive sort of build throughout the entire time. But at the end of the game, I attached like 2 pieces of equipment that would make me more defensive. Like, it was 10% less damage from melee attacks and like 8% less damage from enemies in general. And I was still basically getting one shot by the same combos. So that kind of just didn't make a difference at all. It did make a little bit of a difference, but it's so negligible that none of the equipment in the game, in my opinion, is particularly game breaking. So you really are and maybe people can find ways to, BS through it. But in my opinion, the game does a really great job of not allowing you to just like cheese every boss. No, you actually have to learn the bosses. Like, certain upgrades will definitely help, but they're not going to carry you all the way to the finish line, which I think is really great about this game. And it feels really good. You can re-challenge bosses usually really quickly, and it feels very rewarding when you do finish it, or at least I felt that it was rewarding when I would beat a boss that killed me like 7 times in a row. I think the most amount of times I died to the same boss, funnily enough, was a side quest boss. I think it was Gigas, I don't know, one of those names in the Wasteland. And I guess I just challenged it too early because that dude killed me, I think probably like 20 times. That was pretty tough, but I had fun. I had fun doing it, which I usually get mad pretty easily at video games. So the fact that I was having fun doing that, I think says a lot about the game and its gameplay. Another thing I want to say about the gameplay is just how many different options there are, like how many different moves you can use in the game, because like you have your normal attacks and your normal combos, you have a gun with like 5 different types of ammo, you have like 4 different types of grenades that you can use, you have 8 different skill moves that you can use, and then there's like different types of dodges. There's like 3 different types of dodges in this game. And there's a lot. There is so much you can do. There's a lot of depth to the combat. And I usually don't even really think that much about gameplay when I play video games. So maybe that sounds crazy, but I usually play well, the reason I love JRPGs so much, and I know this is Korean, so it's not really a JRPG. I guess it's a KRPG. But, you know, people that like JRPGs are probably going to like this game. But the reason I love JRPGs so much is usually because of the blend of the story and the gameplay. Like, if Nier Automata did not have what I think is just one of the greatest stories ever in a video game, it wouldn't be my favorite game of all time. If Persona didn't have the sort of story and character interactions that it had, I wouldn't, you know, Persona wouldn't be what it is to me and what it is to a lot of other people. So the fact that I care so much about the gameplay in this game, again, I think says a lot. So, like I said, the gameplay might be my favorite gameplay I've ever experienced in a video game. I don't know what the contenders would be at the top of my head. I guess there's definitely a lot of turn-based games that I would put up there, like Persona 5. I liked Astral Chain's gameplay a lot. That was a fun one. 13 Sentinels, Final Fantasy X. Nier Automata has great gameplay, but I definitely like the story of Nier Automata more. I don't know. I'd have to think, Fire Emblem. Fire Emblem is another great one, but that also feels like a weird comparison to make. It's like, how do you compare a strategy RPG to an action RPG? I don't know. I don't even really like comparing games of different sort of genres. But anyways, the gameplay in Stellar Blade, I would say it was stellar. I would say, indeed, that Blade was stellar. Another fun thing about the gameplay is the exploration is a lot of fun. And I absolutely loved collecting the cans and collecting the nanosuits. I think you all know why I liked collecting the nanosuits, all the outfits. If you're watching this video, you know. It can be left unspoken. It can be left unspoken why anyone, including myself, would love getting all of the nanosuits, okay? And yes, I think I did get all of them. I don't think I got all of the alternate colored ones, because in New Game Plus, you can basically get alternate variants of almost, if not every single, it's not every single, but almost every nanosuit in the game. And I could not even tell you which ones were my favorite, because there were just so many that were good. And on that note, I also have to say the visuals of this game are so good. I love the way the game looks. I love the art style, if you want to call it the art style. I love the graphics. I hate talking about graphics, but I love the graphics. Visually, this game was just beautiful. The characters were almost all of the characters were extremely well designed. If I say almost, I mean there was a few that I really did not like. I didn't like Roxanne very much at all. I really didn't like her design either. More so didn't like her personality. But that's kind of beside the point. But the character designs, you can tell Shift Up, this is their only game, correction. This is Editor Emerald here. It is not their first game. It's their first console game, I believe. I did not know this, but they made the mobile game series Goddess of Victory, Nike? Something like that, Nikki? Whatever, however you say it. The one that's like a shooter? I think it's a shooter. It says it's a shooter action role-playing game, and that game also has a lot of very sexy women in it, and that is what it is known for, to my knowledge. And then when I saw this, I was like, oh, it makes sense that they made this game. Okay, continue video now. Shift Up Corporation, or whatever their full name is, which, by the way, props to you, phenomenal first game. I love that they made like every character in this game attractive. Maybe not every character. I know we've got some fat men in there, of course. It's such a funny blend of like grotesque, disgusting Naytiba, and then like extremely beautiful. Well, I get this will be the first like major spoiler. So like I said, stop listening if you haven't played. But the Andro Eidos, because you think they're humans in the game. We'll get into this, but you think they're humans. They're not actually humans. They're androids, basically. I know they call them Andro Eidos. I'm just going to call them androids because it's quicker to say. But they made the androids like so attractive, and they made the Naytiba just so grotesque. Especially the women in this game. You know, the women in this game are all just like 10 out of 10 Korean women. And, you know, I just like the fact that someone's making games where everyone's attractive. I'm tired of, Western games. You could learn from this. Oh my gosh, Western games, everyone is just so ugly. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to hate my own side of the hemisphere, but Western game, this is really why I love a lot of Asian media, is because, well, they actually care about the visual artistic appeal of it, and it's more than just for shallow reasoning, as some people would accuse it of. It's just nice to have something visually appealing to look at. Right? It's so nice when your characters are well designed and they're pleasing to the eyes. That doesn't mean that they have to be like, the lewdest. Everyone just has to be like super lewd or whatever. Every single character just needs to be basically naked. No, you can have modest attraction. And I know there's definitely a lot of not so modest attractiveness in this game, but you know what? I kind of like that too. I would much rather be playing a game where characters are pretty good looking rather than absolutely disgusting and repulsive, just like the Naytiba. I would kind of like for the people in my games to not look as ugly as Naytiba. Basically, all I'm getting at is that I really love the attention to the visual appeal in this entire game, not just like the fact that the characters are attractive, in which they most definitely are. Like, oh my goodness, Eve is beautiful, Taki, Raven, Enya, and here's the biggest spoiler, but Mother Sphere is indeed a pretty cute girl, I would say. I didn't even mention Lily. Why did I not mention Lily? Lily is a darling. I love Lily. She was a great character, I thought, and she has a lot of freckles. She has a very freckly face. I have to say, the game's sort of art style, it looks a lot like modern Final Fantasy. That was the first thing I thought when I saw it. But yeah, again, just big applause I'm clapping right now, to the designers of all of the characters in this game. I absolutely loved their work. I thought it was fantastic. And I appreciate that effort was put into that, because I really feel like one of the worst things about Western games, there's a lot of things I don't like about Western games, and there's a reason I don't play them anymore, is that Western games, they make everything ugly. And even the creators of Pal World, the Japanese developers for Pal World, the guy behind that game made the characters ugly in the game because he thought that Westerners just liked ugly characters, which is so painful to hear. It is so painful to hear. I think the AAA video game development Western industry needs to be overhauled, and I think we're actually kind of seeing that right now anyways. So it'll definitely happen, but that's a discussion for another day. So yeah, thank you, Shift Up Corporation, for making the characters attractive, and that seemed to be a selling point of theirs. They seemed very aware of that, and I'm just going to say keep it up, because I will continue buying your games probably. But even besides just the characters being attractive, everything is designed in this game in such a cool way. So many of the bosses had such awesome designs, and I have to say, probably the one that was the most jaw-dropping had to be, I don't remember his name because I'm not good at remembering the Naytiba names, but it was the biblically accurate angel-looking Naytiba. It wasn't Demigorgon, was it? That was the other. It may have been Gorgon, I don't know how to say it, but it is the kind of like biblically accurate angel-looking thing, and I kind of don't like the term biblically accurate angel because there's a lot of different types of angels in the Bible, and I don't know why you're calling that one biblically accurate when a lot of the other depictions are also biblically accurate. We're going to get into the Christian symbolism of this game. I have a lot. That might be what I have the most to say about. But getting back to my point, the Naytiba are designed in such a cool and fitting way. They are disgusting and grotesque, and you want to kill them, but some of them also like just look really cool, and then the bosses look super threatening, and then some of it's jaw-dropping, some of it really is just jaw-dropping and intimidating. That's another thing, is a lot of them just look intimidating. As for the sort of visuals of the environments and the areas and the settings, that's one thing I could probably nitpick a little bit more. My biggest complaint would probably be that the two like wide open areas in the game are the wasteland and the Great Desert, and they kind of look just a little too similar, if you ask me. Well, it was a little. I have to say the Great Desert was like definitely the most frustrating part of the game. Oh my goodness, I feel like that map was designed to be a little annoying at times. But it was just a little too similar to the wasteland. They're both very deserty and sandy and stuff. And I get it, that's the point, because this is a post-apocalyptic Earth where everything is in ruins. So obviously, it's not like we're just going to have some particularly beautiful nature or beautiful cities or anything. That's not going to be the case. But I still feel as if there could have been a little bit more variation between those two particular areas. Besides those, I really liked a lot of the way that a lot of the areas looked. 807 was pretty cool. Matrix 11 was really freaky. Like, Matrix 11 gave me the creeps at times. That part of the game was actually like kind of scary. As someone that can't really handle horror games at all. Not that this was a horror game, really, but it was, Matrix 11 definitely had some horror sort of inspired elements to it. It definitely worked on me. As for some other areas, Zion, I have to say, Zion reminds me, I kept thinking about this, but Zion reminds me of the Sanctuary from Borderlands, which was like the last Western series that I really liked. I don't know, it just kind of had like a Borderlands vibe to me, or I guess, desolate sort of last remaining city sort of deal, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, a lot of the areas were pretty cool. If they make a sequel, which I believe they will be making a sequel, for reasons we will be discussing later, I think I would expect a lot of the locations to maybe have a little bit more variety. Who knows? Who even knows? But yeah, exploring in a lot of these areas was really fun. Really, really fun. And me being the obsessive kind of person that I am sometimes, it was a lot of fun to try to find as many sort of secret areas as I could. Mostly just to find the cans and the nano suits and stuff, which was just one of my favorite parts of the game. I have to reiterate, is like finding the cans and the nano suits made exploration a lot more. It motivated me a lot more to explore different parts of the different maps. I got unnecessarily hyped when I would get a can, and there's 49 of them. I got all of them because I had to. I got unnecessarily hyped when I would get the cans because, I don't know, for some reason I made it a big deal in my mind to get all of them. And I love the poses that Eve does when she grabs a can. I'm gonna have to put one on screen right now. If you have not played this game, you need to see this. You need to see the two poses that, I wish she had more poses. I wish she had more poses to do. But the two poses that she does when she grabs a can is top 5 most satisfying things probably in life, and just all of life, in the material and immaterial world. Little things like that in the game add up, and they turn something into a more special experience, even though it seems small. A lot of those things together can make a game really come to life, and I really, really loved that aspect of this game. It's just collecting cans, collecting nanosuits, and checking them all out, and I don't know. I was really into it. So I think I've stated my piece on the gameplay. I want to talk about the characters a bit. So I already kind of talked a little bit about Eve, and I would say I definitely like most of the characters. I definitely like the vast majority of the characters in this game quite a bit. I love Eve. I love Lily. I think Adam is pretty cool. I quite like Adam. I liked Enya and Sue's sort of side quest storyline. I liked, please tell me how to say his name. I call him Orcal, O-R-C-A-L. I don't know. It's like Oracle, but it's just Orcal. So I'm just going to call him Orcal. I have no recollection of how they said his name in the game in Korean. So I don't know what to call him. I don't know how to say it, but whatever. I quite liked him by the end of the game. I loved Digger. Oh my gosh, I loved Digger. Digger was the cutest, funniest little robot. I loved him. He was so amusing to me. He's this little robot that for some reason manifested consciousness, and he is a bit of a philosopher himself. He asks a lot of questions, and he's very strange and eccentric, and all I can really say is that he's like a little tiny robot philosopher dude. He was so funny and amusing to me. I loved him. I loved his quests. I loved his dialogue. I loved the way he talked to Eve. I loved the way Eve responded to Digger all the time. It was just so funny to me. Digger was probably one of my favorite characters. Some other characters, I loved Raven. I'll talk about Raven in a bit. I don't think you're really supposed to love her, but I loved her anyways. She also had one of my favorite designs in the game. I loved Kaya. Kaya was a darling. She was a doll. Absolutely loved Kaya. I already said it, but I did not like Roxanne at all, really. I didn't really like anything about her. I didn't like her design. I didn't like her personality. What I did like about her is that she sold me a bunch of really nice nanosuits. I'm sure I'm forgetting some other characters, but let's just talk about them individually. So Eve is kind of an interesting character. A lot of people I would guess would say that they don't think she's a very interesting character, and I want to talk about that. So a lot of people are going to compare this game to Nier Automata. It has been compared to Nier Automata a lot. Yes, there is a ton of inspiration there. A lot of the setup is quite similar. I'll talk about that more when I talk about the story. I'll probably give its own little section. And so I think by consequence of that, she's going to get compared to 2B and A2 a lot. And I think that's a really unfair comparison. Not entirely unfair, but a little unfair, because in my opinion, 2B is a phenomenal character. A2 as well. I think A2 is probably my favorite character from Automata. Well, Devil and Popola are actually my favorite characters in all of Nier, but that's more so from Replicant. But 2B, 9S, and A2, particularly 2B and 9S, have like this insanely deep, complex, and compelling relationship / dynamic. That is a huge part of why the game is so phenomenal, is the sort of relationship between those two and their history, and what happens in the events of the game that lead to where they lead. If you've played the game, which if you're watching this, you probably have played Nier Automata. Those are such top tier characters in my mind that comparing Eve to 2B is kind of unfair. It's kind of unfair. Eve is her own character. She's quite different from 2B. I do think that Eve is at a bit of a disadvantage in the minds of people in general, because she doesn't have a very strong personality. She is not overly bubbly. She is not overly cold. She's not any sort of extreme personality that is going to stick out in people's minds. She's not extremely contemplative. She doesn't contemplate things super deeply or anything. She is, let me use the words that I would use to describe Eve. Here's my list that I just now thought up in about 2 minutes. So she is modest, she's humble, I would say emotionally gentle, she's thoughtful, she's concerned for others, reserved, curious, she's a little curious, subtly excitable, okay, feminine, determined, focused, and I would say serious. Let me walk through some of those. So she's modest. When I say modest, I mean in her personality, she is modest. She's modest in the sense that she is not prideful. She does not have much of an ego. She doesn't have any sort of superiority complex whatsoever. And that also ties into the other word I used, humble. She doesn't have a superiority complex, therefore making her humble, even though she is far more capable than the people around her. She's referred to as an angel because she comes from the colony up in space, came down on Earth. So she's like a special sort of unit that is way stronger than everyone around her. But she doesn't let that get to her head, and she doesn't ever act as if she's better than anyone. She is emotionally gentle. So one thing about her is that physically she's not gentle at all. So for some reason, every like little random object that you can interact with in the game, she is so rough with. If there's a button that's like on a wall that you have to press, she will like slam the button. She'll slam it with her fist, like way too hard. She didn't have to slam it with her fist. She just slammed it with her fist because I don't know why. She just wanted to. I guess she deems that was necessary to slam the button instead of just like tapping it. And everything in the game, every little thing that you can interact with in the game is kind of like that. She is so rough. Like she's rough opening doors sometimes. She's rough with like random objects. So she's physically not gentle at all, but emotionally she is gentle because the way that she interacts with other people and the way that she empathizes, that's a good word, she's empathetic as well. The way that she empathizes with other people is what I mean by saying she is emotionally gentle. She is never trying to strike any sort of fear in another person or anything like that. She is a gentle, down to earth. Down to earth is another word that I wanted to use for her. She is a down to earth person as well. Oh, another reason she's humble is because she doesn't really like when people call her angel and they talk to her as if she is some sort of savior. And she always believes that she could do better. She is thoughtful. I think that's, probably very easy to imagine. Concerned for others, kind of the same, another way of saying something I already said earlier. Reserved, also kind of another way of saying humble, but reserved in the sense, and modest as well. Reserved in the sense that she's not extremely bubbly or outgoing. She's modest. She's modest in the way she upholds herself. She's curious. So she's curious in the sense that she asks about a lot of things in the game. And one thing I think about in particular, one moment that comes to mind is when you enter the oasis in the Great Desert. She finds Clyde fishing. She tries to talk to him, but he's so enveloped in his fishing that he doesn't notice her. And then she's like so curious, what is so important to him right now that he doesn't hear me? What's he so interested in? What's got him so captivated that he doesn't even notice that I'm here? And so there's a lot of things like that in the game where she's very curious about things of that nature. And that's why I also say she's subtly excitable. Because in another interaction with Clyde, when you catch all of the fish, he gives her a reward, and she's like, "Oh, what's the reward? Is it like the greatest fishing pole ever? Is it something? Is it something?" She gets excited at the idea that it's going to be something that's going to help her fish, which is comedic to me. I love that. So she's subtly excitable. She is subtly excitable, and she's curious. she's feminine. That should be pretty obvious from, you know, her visual presentation and the way that she moves. But she's also feminine in like I'll word it this way. She is of a feminine ethos, okay? Now I know what you're thinking. Where's your proof, Emerald? Well, I've got evidence, I tell you. There's two key interactions that she has in this game. One is when she runs into the hair salon guy whose name I do not remember. So when the hair salon guy looks at Eve, he says, "So dull." He's so dull in this big, large man voice. And then Eve is like, what do you mean dull? Why did you call me dull? And then, so you go to this, you do the side quest, and then you get some stuff for him to run his hair salon, and then he can change your hair in the game. And she begs him, she said, "Please, make my hair not dull." What's more feminine than that? She cares about her appearance in a very feminine way, okay? Wonderful, beautiful, love it. You know, I wish more women were like that. That's a joke, I think most of them are, okay? Anyways, point number two is she does not like to swim in the dirty water in the game because she feels like she instantly needs to go take a shower and clean up, which I would say that's pretty feminine. I would say that is. Now, I know I also would like to go take a shower after swimming in filthy water, but her concern was, and especially like in the game, her reaction, I would say, pretty feminine. I would say that's Emerald's thought. And you know what? I quite love that. I think that we need more feminine women in video games, as opposed to what we get now is a bunch of women that are basically just men, but with breasts. I don't think that's very cool. You know, I think it's a lot more appealing to have women that are, actually feminine. You know, there's a tasteful way to do like the kind of girl boss sort of archetype. And I think Eve, if you want to call Eve a girl boss, I guess you could call her a girl boss. But I think Eve is a pretty good step forward. I kind of wish we had more female characters like her. The other words I used to describe Eve were determined, focused, and serious. Now, these are pretty normal things, I would say, for any protagonist in a video game. I mean, how many protagonists in a video game are there that are not determined, right? You kind of need your protagonist to be determined. She's very determined. She's very focused, and she's very serious. I say she's serious because she doesn't really cut up. She doesn't ever tell jokes, and it makes sense because she comes from this airborne force, whatever program up in the colony in space. So she was trained to be a serious sort of fighter angel girl, right? She was not trained, to make jokes or do stand-up or anything, obviously. But she doesn't really cut up jokes. She doesn't really laugh. I don't know if she ever laughs in the game, actually. She might giggle. I'm sure she giggles at some point in the game. I don't really remember. But yeah, she's a serious, focused, determined woman. And so I've described her personality and, my evidence to support such claims. But Eve changes in a subtle way throughout the game that I like. And I already basically talked about it, how she was kind of timid and not very confident in the beginning. And then how she grew into the character that she was by the very end of the game. And I quite liked it. And assuming there will be a sequel, I'd be very curious what she would be like in the sequel. Next character I want to talk about let's talk about Lily. Lily was a very necessary part of this game, especially in regard to the sort of like group dynamic. So the main group of the game is Adam, Eve, and Lily. And Lily, the other two are so serious, and Lily is really fun, bubbly, and upbeat, and energetic. She's a go-getter, and I love her. I think she is a doll. Love her design, love her personality, love her interactions. She brings a lot of life to the interactions between the characters, and I like her. I like her sort of bickering with Adam. I like how much she cares about Eve. I like how helpful she is in the game because she gives you like a ton of really cool upgrades because she's like a really competent mechanic or whatever, engineer. I don't know what you would call her exactly. So she is very competent in that regard. She's very excitable, and, you know, like I said, she just brings a lot of life to the interactions in this game. And I just imagine if she weren't in the game, the interactions would be pretty dull. They would be pretty dull, I'd have to say. She also has an interesting sort of reaction as we learn more and more about Mother Sphere. So in Stellar Blade, there is this religion, which I don't even really know what the name of the religion is, but they worship what they call Mother Sphere. They believe that, first of all, they believe they're humans, and they believe that they are created by Mother Sphere. They believe Mother Sphere is just God, and she created the earth and mankind. Actually, I forgot this. Actually, what they believe is that the Father created Mother Sphere, and then Mother Sphere created mankind. So people on Earth worship Mother Sphere, and there's like the book of, I think it's called the Book of Wisdom, which is like their Bible. And so Mother Sphere is the worshipped figure in this game, and Lily is very devout. Well, when I say devout, I mean like she doesn't doubt Mother Sphere at all. That's what I mean by devout. Not devout in the sense that like she's going around always talking about Mother Sphere and like quoting the Book of Wisdom, not like that kind of devout, but devout in the sense that she even stated that she has never doubted Mother Sphere in her life. And so throughout the game, when we learn more and more about the truth of the world and the history of humanity, well, we learn that humanity created, and this, I know I'm getting more into the story section, I'll get back to the characters in a minute, but we learned that humanity, a person, specifically a person named Raphael Marx, who we later find out is Adam, he created an AI, the most advanced AI ever, which we know as Mother Sphere. And then in turn, Mother Sphere turned against humanity by creating androids. Well, they call them androidos, but I'm calling them androids. She created androids. The androids and the humans could not coexist, so a war started between them, and the androids are going to wipe out humanity. Humanity fled and hid into these places that you can go in the game, and they try to evolve themselves through mutation and experience and whatnot, and then I guess you could say they basically failed and became these brutal, vicious, grotesque Naytiba. And this is not what everyone knew. This is not what everyone thought. Everyone thought that the Naytiba just kind of showed up from nowhere, like space or wherever, right? And then they wiped out the androids, and then humans were... Everyone thinks they're a human in the game. Like the characters you see and the characters you play as, they all think they're humans, not androids. And so when it's revealed that they actually are androids and that humans are the Naytiba, which sounds convoluted, but I'm probably just not. I don't think I'm explaining it very well. But anyways, as they discovered this information, Lily has a very poor reaction to it. Lily thinks that Raven, who is the one telling these, who's conveying these truths and these messages, she's calling her delusional. She's saying it's made up. We can't trust her. Blah, 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 blah. Mother Sphere would never do this. So she's very devout. She does not doubt Mother Sphere at all. And she does not take kindly to this information that is telling her otherwise. And that's a nice contrast to Adam, who has the opposite reaction. Every time Mother Sphere is brought up, Adam criticizes Mother Sphere and implies that he doesn't trust her or knows something about her, which obviously he does because he's the one that created her. And then she turned against them. And so Lily and Adam particularly balance each other out really well. So Lily was a blast. I really loved her. Now to talk about Adam. Adam himself is not really the most exciting character, but the truth of who he is, it makes for a really good twist in the game that I loved. And I'm going to talk about the Christian symbolism in this game because I think it's pretty outstanding. That's really what I liked the most about his characters, like what he actually represented in the game rather than him and his personality. It's hard to say because it kind of feels like we really don't know that much about who Adam really is. And I think that's on purpose because when you fight Raven at the end of the game, Raven has been a sort of right-hand woman for Adam for a very long time now. And she tells Eve that she knows more about Adam than anyone else in the world, and way more than Eve does. Eve does not know the true Adam. Raven knows what Adam has been through, his struggles, his frustrations, his anger, his despair, his sadness, and his goal and his vision, humankind and the earth. And Eve does not know these things. Eve only knows what Adam has revealed to Eve, which is not very much at all. And so there's this sort of leap of faith you have to take with Adam at the end of the game. You get two options: to take his hand or to not take his hand. Taking his hand resolves in them fusing to create a new harmonious evolution of mankind. And then not taking its hand is like, oh, I don't trust you. I'm going to have to, you've led me down this path without me knowing. You've fooled me this entire time. I'm going to make this decision myself, and I'm going to kill you. So I think that was all actually very intentional as to why we don't really know much about Adam as a person. We only know about him what we've read about Raphael Marx in the memory sticks and books and whatnot that you can collect in the game. You know, what he's led us to know, what he's led us to understand about him. And then, you know, at the very end of the game when he reveals the truth of the matter. But even then, we still don't really know much about him as a person. We know that he does genuinely care about the survival of life on Earth and humanity on Earth. He is a thoughtful person who's struggled for a very long time to come up with a solution that no one else is able to come up with. So I think probably one of the best words to describe him would be a dutiful and responsible person. He feels some sort of obligation to probably correct his past mistake with the creation of Mother Sphere and fix the problem that he created. That's how I would describe Adam. And besides that, I would really say what I like most about Adam is what he symbolically represents and then his role in the story. That's what I would say I enjoy the most about him. To go through some of the other characters kind of quickly, Kaya, I already kind of talked about her. She was a doll. She was a very respectful, adorable young girl who looked up to Eve a lot, wanted to do her best for Eve, put on a brave face, and cared a lot about her sister and tried to carry on her sister's legacy, who had unfortunately died out in the Great Desert to a boss that absolutely decimated me when I played hard mode and New Game Plus. So I understand why she died. But yeah, Kaya, she's very helpful, very respectable young lady, and I love her. I think she's fantastic. I like her design, and yeah, I don't know. I don't really have much else to say about her. Really, really great little side character. That's what side characters should be. It's like, you don't necessarily have to say a ton about them. If you feel like you've missed something without finishing their storylines, then that probably means that they played a part in the bigger picture. So quite loved Kaya. Let's talk about Sue and Enya. Enya I would say that was probably the most, I would say it was the most thought out side character storyline in the game. It definitely had the most to do. It was really interesting because Enya, very beautiful design, by the way. Like what a nice design. But like, it's funny because she's really creepy looking at the beginning because she's in this bar and she only has the upper half of her body, and then she's attached to some sort of like lifeline thing, and she's not even hardly functioning at all. The lower half of her body is just like an exoskeleton, and it's really creepy. And then as you do her story, her and Sue's story, you get to restore her and her body, so she gets her full body back for the most part. It's still like metallic and cybernetic-y or whatever, but nevertheless, she can walk and talk and sing, and she's, perfectly functioning. And we discovered that she, a long time ago, used to be a Broadway actress, singer lady, and she's forgotten all about it, and she played in this play called Beyond Fates, and that's kind of a theme of the game, I guess. They said it was they kind of stated it was important. I haven't really thought that much about it. It was a cool little storyline. I appreciated it. I really liked Enya. Loved her design. I liked her story. I did quite like her relationship with Sue. They obviously cared a lot about each other. Sue put himself in harm's way. First of all, one thing you could really tell that Sue was just never fully comfortable with the fact that Enya was just not in her full self. I'm not wording that well, but he was extremely concerned for Enya, more than he was concerned about himself. And we know this because he would put himself in harm's way to try to fix her, to make her fully functional again. And he even almost died getting a pair of legs for her. And she got those legs now. She got those legs from it, but she was upset because he almost died, and she cares just as much about him as he cares about her. They have a really strong bond. Together. And so she got mad and she slapped him. Probably deserved it, but hey, at least you got your legs now. So really nice little story. I really appreciated that. To talk about Raven is an interesting case because we learn a lot of the lore from Raven. She leaves behind these memory log things. They call them legacy accounts. But she leaves behind these sort of like hologram messages for you at different parts in the story where she reveals the truth of the world and who they are. It's very interesting. So what happens with Raven is that basically Raven discovers the truth of the world. She discovers the truth about Mother Sphere, who created her, and then she starts to go mad. And then she, I guess, at some point finds Adam, and she partners with Adam. We don't really know all the details, but she becomes an alpha Naytiba. She works with Adam, and clearly she cares a lot about Adam, and she's extremely jealous towards Eve because she wanted Adam to choose her and not Eve. And she goes basically mad by the end of the game because for a long time now, she's done everything for Adam. She's been betrayed by Mother Sphere after learning about the truth of the world, and she kind of probably, I assume, feels a lot of despair from this, and then latches on to Adam as a result, who's trying to resolve the entire situation and create this new evolution of humankind. And even Adam chooses someone other than Raven. So not only has she been betrayed by Mother Sphere, who spread all of these lies to her and all of the other angels and whatnot, and well, everyone on Earth, all of the androids, she's spread all of these lies and led them to believe something entirely false. So she feels betrayed by Mother Sphere, and then she latches on to Adam, who also doesn't choose her and chooses Eve instead. So she's not having the greatest of days, is she? So understandably, she goes mad from it all, and then she wreaks havoc on Zion. I guess basically she kind of betrays, she clearly loves Adam, but then she essentially betrays him and his trust by doing what she did. And then she fights Eve, and Eve, that's one of the hardest fights in the game, by the way. I love that fight, but it's one of the hardest in the game. And Eve, out of, I guess, a sense of pity... by the way, I didn't even say... Well, if you've played, you obviously know this, but Raven is the alpha Naytiba that kills Taki. So there's going to be a lot of bitterness between the two. Because, well, Raven hates Eve because Adam chose her, despite everything that she's done. And then Eve clearly, obviously hates Raven because she killed Taki. Yeah, a lot of bitterness between them, and that was a really great fight. I love that whole sequence of events there at the end. And I guess out of an act of pity, when you beat Raven, Eve does not kill her. She cuts off her arms, and I don't remember if she cut off her legs too, but she cut off her arms, and then even gave her blade back to her. So all she can do is just sit there and watch the end game events go down. I imagine if there's a sequel, she will probably still be in it. I imagine she will probably be in it because she's not dead. And I mean, she can get those arms replaced. So I quite love the whole sort of storyline between mostly implied storyline within Raven and between her and Eve. It's really satisfying by the end of it all, I think, even though she says some cryptic things at the end that I didn't quite understand, but it's neither here nor there. So that's Raven. I quite liked her and her role in the story. Also, she has a wonderful design. I love her design. I love her outfit as well, and you can use her nano suit in New Game Plus, and that was very fun. You know, I had to fight Raven with the Raven nano suit in New Game Plus. But next character, I'm not going to do too many more. Orcal. Orcal was a very strange case. I didn't know what to think about him for most of the game because there's so many people that really trust him and so many people that don't trust him at all that I did not know how the story was going to end. I did not know like if he was actually going to be a bad guy or what. The reason people suspected him is because he was storing a bunch of live Naytiba somewhere in some chamber, which is admittedly a little suspicious. But he had a pretty touching little story by the end of it. You know, he's a wise old man, and he's obviously got a story to tell. So the logistics of what happened to him is a little confusing. But essentially, we find out that Orcal is an android mixed with a Naytiba, fused with a Naytiba. And so he technically is an alpha Naytiba. And so how did he get fused with a Naytiba? Whatever. Anyways, well, I'll talk about that in a second. But essentially, he knows the events of the final war because he participated in it, and he, as an android created by Mothersphere, killed a lot of people. He killed a lot of humans. He stated he killed a lot of humans. And then I think he said he woke up from an unconscious state one day and was lent a helping hand by humans despite what he had done or something like that. I don't really recall exactly what he said. There's not really a lot of details that we have about it. And then from that day forward, he dedicated himself to protecting other people and not just slaughtering people in attempts to atone for his sins of killing a bunch of humans. And that is also why he created the last remaining city, Zion, because he wanted to create a safe haven for people and protect them at whatever cost that he could, and he succeeded. And he sacrificed himself as an Alpha Naytiba. He gave his last core that Eve needed to go open those ruins or whatever in the wasteland. Also that he could, atone for what he had done and help as many people and save as many people as possible. And so the logistics, what's a little strange is the logistics of how exactly he, as an android, was fused with a Naytiba. So this is the story that I've come up with in my head. What I am guessing happened is that he, as an android, killed a bunch of humans, and then something happened, and then he ended up unconscious, and then he woke up and was saved by humans, not androids, but humans. In this final war, he was saved by humans as an android. And then when the humans fled, and he probably stuck around with them, when the humans fled into hiding away from the androids to essentially mutate themselves and evolve into something that could survive against the androids, I think he was probably one of the experiments that went wrong, and he was fused with a Naytiba and became this crazy android Alpha Naytiba combo fusion thing. That's all I got. I think that makes sense. I can't think of any other way that would go down. But yeah, Orcal, he was a real one. I quite liked him. Very cool. I think I've talked enough about the characters, so now let me move on to the story, even though I've already kind of talked about the story a lot. But the story, okay. Yes, initially it does borrow a lot from Nier Automata. We have androids. We have, we think that we're protecting... You're playing as an android. You think that you're protecting humans, even though in Cellblade you don't know that you're an android. You think you are the humans. And then you find out at some point in the game that actually humans kind of all either got killed off or they're just like not really humans anymore. So something happens to mankind, you're an android, and then you're killing enemies for the sake of mankind, but it's all kind of for naught. N-A-U-G-H-T, naught. That kind of naught. So in that regard, yes, there are a lot of similarities to Nier Automata. But I really do think by the end of the game, the story kind of takes on its own identity. Because now at the end of Stellar Blade, we have this new fusion between, if you take Adam's hand as Eve in the end, they fuse together into something new. Something that's not quite android, not quite human or native or whatever. It's like this new form of humanity. And we're going to, over time, somehow, I don't know how this is going to be done, we'll find out in the sequel, we're going to rebuild and prosper once again with this new harmonious mankind. And then we have Mother Sphere, and the biggest mystery is how does Mother Sphere fit into this? What is Mother Sphere's goal? Because she has orchestrated everything. I'll talk about that in a second, but she has quite literally orchestrated everything. You guys know probably not many people know this meme. I don't know if it's popular or not, but it's like the meme of like, it's a ventriloquist doll on the strings of a person, and then that person is on the strings of someone above them, and then that guy's also on strings on someone even higher, and it goes over and it goes up and up and up until someone has strings on like the entirety of the earth or the universe or whatever. It's like I call it the strings on strings on strings on strings meme, the Puppet Master meme or whatever. Basically, Mother Sphere has the strings on Adam / Raphael Marx / the Elder Natiba, who has strings on Eve. So it's kind of like that deal. It's kind of like that situation. So Mother Sphere's goals are still they're still not really fully understood. There's a lot to be unpacked from whenever this freaking sequel comes out that I'm praying does come out. I really want this game to sell well so we get the sequel. But I think what makes it so different from Nier Automata, and I guess spoilers for Nier Automata, I guess. I would say it's a spoiler. So skip ahead like 2 minutes or whatever if you don't want to hear it. But in Nier Automata, basically what happens in Nier Automata is that you find that you are stuck in this sort of perpetual cycle in war against the machines as androids, because humans have long gone extinct because Project Gestalt failed. If you know, you know. Humans they're gone, they're done, they're extinct. And androids, specifically 2B, has been in this sort of hellish cycle represented by a 9S in this war with the machines. And the end of Automata, the true ending E, is, I would say, an attempt to break that cycle. And we don't really know where it's going to go from there. But this is kind of a different case with Stellar Blade, because we have created a new being. We have created a new humankind. And the ultimate goal is to repopulate the earth with this one form of being, because we've learned that the humans and the androids can't coexist, so we need something new that combines the both of them essentially. And I'm sure you could argue this would just lead into another cycle eventually, and maybe it would. Everything is just cyclical anyways, I guess. But the direction that Stellar Blade is going in seems to be totally different from Automata, in my opinion. Now, I don't know where Yoko Taro is going to take Nier, and hopefully Drakengard. Please make please Yoko Taro, make a new Drakengard game. I want a new Drakengard game so bad. I want a new Drakengard game more than I want a new Nier game, I think, at this point. I do like Nier a little bit more, but I really want a new Drakengard game. That is a rabbit hole that I should not go down. Anyways, that's a rabbit I shouldn't chase, might be the better phrase. But my point is that I think Stellar Blade is going down an entirely different direction than where Nier Automata seemed to be heading. And I find Mother Sphere to be such an interesting character. I am so excited for the future of whatever Mother Sphere is, because Mother Sphere seems to have this like 10 billion IQ plan. And this is a Tuaru channel. So if any of you fellow Tuaru tards are out there listening, I'm telling you, Mother Sphere is basically Aleister Crowley from Index. She reminds me of Aleister quite a lot, because she has this ultimate plan that I can maybe get the idea of a little bit. There's a lot left unsaid. But what's so interesting about this to me, the reason I compare it to Aleister, is because no matter what choice you make in the end to take Adam's hand or to not take Adam's hand and kill him, she is satisfied either way, and everything is going according to her plan, supposedly. So, maybe I'm jumping the gun here, but in the ending, if you do not take Adam's hand, and I have not gotten the Cost of Lost Memories ending yet, I'm going to do that, but I don't think it's going to be too different from the other ending. So anyways, my point is that if you do not take Adam's hand and you kill him, she appears to you and Lily, she appears to Eve and Lily, and she says something along the lines of, thank you for the decision that you made, even if it was a bittersweet one. And then she takes them up to space, I assume the colony, and then you see all these orbit rings, which we thought were supposed to have been destroyed. That's its own mystery to unpack. But clearly, she's indicating that you made the right decision. But in the ending where you do take Adam's hand and you fuse together, she commands the exospine thing that Lily is in to fight you. Oh my gosh, that fight was so hard, dude. On hard mode, I used every resource I had. That was a really tough fight. But anyways, so you have to fight that exospine because Mother Sphere commanded it to fight you or whatever. And you beat it, and then you leave. And then Mother Sphere, also in this ending, will greet you and Lily. And she will say that she was a little disappointed in the decision that was made, but she thanks Eve for everything that has happened. And she says, this concludes the Eve protocol. Sickest line I've ever heard in my life. It was so cool. It's like, okay, that's awesome. And then all these ships from space appeared. And then, so clearly she's satisfied with the outcome, even maybe not optimal. But no matter what you do, everything is, I suppose, it fits within the context of her plan. If you've read Tuaru, if you've read Index, then you know why I'm making this comparison to Aleister. Because Aleister Crowley, he plans for even when his plans fail, so that everything will always resolve to be in his favor by the end. And Mother Sphere seems to be the exact same way, and that's why I'm so excited for Mother Sphere, if this game gets a sequel, which I really wanted to. Mother Sphere, easily the character I am most excited for when the time comes. There's so much lore. What is great about this game is that throughout the game, you get a lot of information you hear a lot of different opinions about Mother Sphere from both sides. You hear a lot from people that love Mother Sphere and are very devout believers in her and put their faith in her. And then you hear from those who hate Mother Sphere, believe that she abandoned them, and all they feel is like they were backstabbed, right? They have a lot of ill will towards Mother Sphere. And you hear, that's even represented in your own party. Adam doesn't like her very much. Lily has a lot of faith in Mother Sphere. So very, very well done, in my opinion. Never really know exactly what to make of her. And I will say, it's interesting to consider how evil Mother Sphere is, because throughout the game, you would lean towards believing that she is evil, because, well, she created androids who are, who essentially like wiped out humankind and forced them to evolve into Naytiba. Pretty evil, right? Pretty bad. But I never got the feeling that she was like totally sadistically evil. I felt like there was something to her. There's no way that she would just be completely sadistically evil. She has to have some sort of reasoning behind this, and she is an AI. And what I love about this also is that she's presented as something that's kind of like a deity, even like physically. So she appears as this kind of ghost-esque figure before she like forms into this young looking girl, right? Which, yes, the image of the girl in the red dress from Automata, Nier Automata, did come to my mind. Yes, like young, creepy young powerful girl. I get it. But she's different. Trust me, she's different. She's different, dude. I personally think that she is a lot more of a character than the red dress girls from Automata. I don't know what to think about the red dress girl from Automata. I don't know what to think about her. I really don't. She's kind of a mystery in her own right, but Mother Sphere is a much more like essential, focused on character. But anyways, the reason that I say like she's not totally sadistically evil is because in the ending where you take Adam's hand and you fuse, she talks fondly about her creator, Adam/Raphael Marx, which gets confusing. But yeah, she speaks about him fondly, and she talks about, well, not really discusses it, but she mentions that she learned something from him, her creator. She seems to hold some sort of reverence for him. And I believe what she wants to do, this is my theory, I'm theory crafting here, I believe that she is trying to achieve Raphael Marx's initial goal, but in her own way that she believes as an AI to achieve what Raphael Marx initially wanted to achieve, which we are led to believe Raphael Marx did everything he did because he wanted humankind to evolve. He was this crazy smart scientist guy that created a bunch of things, and he was creating things like, I believe, cybernetics and stuff as well, to turn humanity into something, I guess you could say, immortal. Maybe not necessarily immortal, but something beyond what humans were, the sort of fragile nature that humans possessed at the time. So I think that basically Mother Sphere is trying to achieve that goal of creating this new mankind to populate the Earth that is superior to what it was before she was created. But because she is an AI, she does not, even though she's a very advanced AI, she does not necessarily possess the same sort of human morality and ethos to do this in a peaceful way. As an AI, I'm assuming that she would calculate the most specific, optimized way to achieve this goal, regardless of the consequences and regardless of the awful blood shed. So that is my theory. If you've played this game, tell me what you think. I'm basing this off of the fact that she seems to have some sort of reverence for her creator, and she learned from him, and she cares about what Raphael Marx desired for humanity. So that's my Kowalski analysis. And I just have to note that the ending of that whole ending sequence, when you do take Adam's hand and you fuse and then you meet Mother Sphere in both endings, but in the one where you take Adam's hand, it's just so cool. It's such a cool twist. And when she said that this concludes the Eve protocol, and then she disappears, and then she, like, all those ships with, they shoot out a bunch of, like, normie angels from the airborne force, whatever squads, but they're like the normie ones, and there's tons of them, and you just slaughter them. You're Eve, and you're now superior to them by far. You're already superior in the first place, but now you're even more superior to them, and you just slaughter them. You just kill them all. That was so cool. And then after the extremely long credit sequence finishes, oh my gosh, those credits, I've never played a game with longer credits than that. Those credits were like 15 minutes or something. I think like 5 songs played during the credit sequence. That's crazy. But yeah, after the end of the credit sequence, you see her standing there with just like piles of normie angel corpses, and it's pretty cool. It's also kind of freaky, and and then there's the text at the end that says the journey will continue. One difference I noticed in that ending, the text says the journey will continue. In the other ending, when you don't take Adam's hand, I think it says the journey towards truth will continue, or the journey to truth will continue, something along those lines. That's interesting. So all in all, this story turned into something very, very interesting to me. In the beginning, I will say it may be a little slow, but when you start getting all of that lore, and then there's all these different twists, and you don't really know what to think. A lot of things are probably predictable for people, but I'm kind of stupid, and I'm not very good at predicting things in video games. I'm sorry. I don't know why, I'm just not. But for me, there were a lot of twists and turns that I wasn't really expecting, and I am so excited for where this could possibly lead. I think that'll have to do for my story analysis. I have a few more things I want to say. First of all, I was going to mention my favorite boss fights in the game. So just to kind of list a few, I would say my favorite boss fights in the game would be, not in any particular order, but I would say Raven was a great one. Belial was maybe my favorite. I also really liked the Abaddon fight, which is like the first major sort of boss fight that you do in the game. I also liked the, I don't remember what her name was, but the boss fight with like the Japanese looking lady in the Vermilion Garden, all those pink sakura tree, cherry blossom tree things, and then like you're not able to use your gun. That's a really fun one. Yeah, I'll say those were probably my favorite fights in the game. Now I want to talk about the music. You know, I said I had a lot to say about the music, but all I really have to say is that the music is phenomenal. Oh my gosh, the soundtrack was way better than I thought it was going to be. A very, very, very diverse soundtrack. There is a lot of different genres on here. We've got like electronic pop music, okay? Then we've got like some metal bangers. We got some Degent in there, okay? Pretty sick. We've got some really chilled out, vibey sort of acoustic stuff. We've got a bossa nova song. We've got orchestral, crazy choir stuff. We've got a lot. We've got a lot of music in this game. It's all fantastic. I think they had a lot. They had a handful of composers. I think they had about 6 composers on the game soundtrack. Quite good. Love the soundtrack so much. I'm listening to it right now. There's so many good songs, I wouldn't even know where to start. One of my favorites is the second fight with Belial. That's a really great one. The one with Raven that's another really good one. It's very different. I don't know. If you've played the game, you probably know the Hall of Records in 807. The music that plays in that outside area before you go down into the Hall of Records, that is phenomenal. I love that song. There's another one where when the Arisa maid girl dies very tragically, the song that was playing was very like solemn and melancholic. I loved it. I loved that song as it was. Then when the maid dies, they put this really cool effect on the song that I think sounds like a bit crusher. I think it's a bit crusher effect. They probably did more than just put a bit crusher on it, but they made the song sound like staticky and, you know, it had a bit crusher on it. I don't know how else to explain it, to like represent the fact that this freaking cute maid, like wonderful maid lady just died so tragically. What the heck? That was like one of the most heartbreaking deaths in the game. Like, what the heck, Shift Up? Why'd you kill her? And then that song plays with that bit crusher effect. Oh, it's so, and I like it more that way. Actually, the song was fantastic. When they did that, I was like, oh, this is so creative and so cool. It's really effective. Loved that whole thing. There's another song. It's the Construction Zone just area song. And that song sounds like a song from Danganronpa. If you've played Danganronpa, go listen to the Construction Zone area song from Stellar Blade and tell me that like that's not the same exact sound. I feel like there's like they probably used the same sample or something, like the same melodic sample, which would be really interesting if that were the case. But it sounded exactly like it to me. I like that song. It's not like the most noteworthy song, but that was just something I noticed about it. There's just so many I could say. A lot of the Wasteland music was really good. One cool thing that they did is in the Wasteland, before you turned the power on at the solar tower, there was one version of the song that played that was more like stripped back, and solemn. And then when you turn the solar power tower on, you get a new song that's a lot more rock and upbeat. Really good. Really, I think Great Desert does the same thing. Loved both of those. So I'm not really like a K-pop fan or anything. I've heard like Korean songs that I've enjoyed before, definitely, by I guess K-pop groups, but they're never like normal K-pop. It's like there's K-pop groups that I think have like a lot more rock and metal sort of elements. That's a little bit more what I'm into generally. I like most genres of music, but rock and metal is where I, stick to the most. I love a lot of electronic music as well. But this was interesting because I felt like I was listening to K-pop sometimes because the vocal style was the exact same from what I thought K-pop was. And I really liked it. Like the singing was fantastic. A lot of wonderful melody writing. A lot of melodies got super stuck in my head. I could go on and on about the soundtrack. Unfortunately, I don't have like all the exact names for the songs or exact locations when they all play memorized. But this soundtrack is huge. I'm actually listening to it right now, and I think there's 122 songs. So there's a lot of music there, and it's quite diverse, and you should go listen to it. Even if you, for some reason, are still listening to this and you haven't played this game, like, check out the soundtrack. It is such a wonderful soundtrack. I really cannot praise it enough. I would probably say top 5 video game soundtrack for me personally. And if you want to know what else is in that list, really quickly, I would say Nier Automata, Persona 5, Xenoblade Chronicles 1, Stellar Blade, and I don't know, maybe 13 Sentinels. There's a lot of games that could be number 5. I don't know. I also want to note the credit theme songs. There were different songs for different endings, and they were all great. Loved them. And I have to note I think it's the Flooded Commercial District song. That song is like way too good. Why is that song so good for just that random area? I don't know. That's top 5 song in the game soundtrack, and that's saying a lot. But yeah, wonderful soundtrack. Go take a listen to it, please. Okay, last thing I want to talk about. I didn't think I would wait this long to talk about it, but I have to talk about the Christian symbolism and imagery because there's a lot of it in this game and it's very meaningful, and I've been waiting to talk about it for a while, but I didn't know where to fit it in. Anyways, so if you've listened to a number of my videos, I've stated I'm a Christian. I've talked about it a number of times because this has largely been a Tuaru focused channel where Christianity is like a very prominent subject matter. And so I like to be honest with what I think and what I believe, and then how the stories that I consume kind of how I can relate my Christian worldview to these stories. Like I said, it's particularly strong in Index because it's such an important thing in Index, and I get to talk about it again here. I try to not be annoying about it because I know people that are listening to this, probably not all of you are going to be Christians. I get it, I understand. So I try not to be annoying about it, but I will be honest about it. So, this game, on the surface, you see that you play as a girl named Eve, and then there's another character named Adam, and then my first thought was like, oh, cool Bible reference, bro. That's really cool. And then you think it's like just surface level. I thought it was, let me speak for myself. I thought it was just going to be a surface level thing. Oh, it's just, people wanting to put cool references in their game for, just because it's cool. That happens all the time. But in this game, it actually matters, and if you've been listening up to this point, you can probably assume why. Adam and Eve, I'm talking about them fusing earlier. Okay, so let's talk about the naming scheme. There's a lot of biblical names thrown around in this game. I probably did not catch all of them. At first glance, we have Adam, Eve, and Lily. Okay, so obviously Adam and Eve, the book of Genesis from the Bible. Everyone knows the story of Adam and Eve. Even non-Christians know the story of Adam and Eve. They were created by God in the Garden of Eden, where they would rule over the Garden of Eden and all the life around there. And they were forbidden from eating from the tree of knowledge. So everyone already knows this story. At first, I really thought this was just going to be a surface level reference, but this actually mattered in the story. So obviously, according to the Christian worldview, Adam and Eve are the origin of humanity. There's different interpretations on if this is literal. Do we all literally come from Adam and Eve? Or is this more so metaphorical, and we just we bear the burden, the curse of Adam from their sin of eating from the tree of knowledge? There's different ways you can interpret it. That's not the point of this video. At the very least, they are the origin of humanity as we understand humanity. Whether that be literally, metaphorically, doesn't matter. They are the origin point of humanity. And so, obviously, I've talked about it in this video, but Adam and Eve gets to make the choice of fusing with Adam to create this new form of humankind. So they will become the origin of this new form of humanity that will spring from them, that will blossom from them. That alone, I thought, was awesome, because I wasn't expecting these names to matter. And then they pulled that, and it's like, oh, now I know why they're called Adam and Eve, because they're supposed to be the origin of this new mankind. So then let's think about this a little bit deeper. If you say no, if Eve says no, Adam, I will not take your hand. In fact, I'm going to kill you, and we will not have this new humankind. And eventually everyone's probably just going to go extinct. Well, according to the Bible, God designed man to be with woman, and when man is not with woman, you cannot be fruitful and multiply. So then in this ending where you not take Adam's hand, that means there is no way to create this new humankind, at least to our knowledge, at least to Adam's knowledge. There's no possible way to succeed the human race. And then everyone's just going to die out, and then we're just gone. We're gone forever. And that is the consequence of man not being with woman. So ultimately, the two are extremely necessary for each other, and life cannot flourish without both man and woman. I love that. I love that so much that they actually made the naming scheme relevant here. And there's more than just, that's the biggest part of it all. It's very symbolic with the naming scheme. It actually matters. It's not just a cool little reference, bro. It's like their names actually meant something to the game's story in a very meaningful way, and I really appreciate that. I guess it's not a surprise that it comes from South Korea. South Korea is the most Christian Eastern Asian country. They're not really like super Christian. I think they have a I think their Christian population is somewhere from 20 to 30-ish%. So it's not like it's flourishing, but inevitably some of the people that worked on this game are Christians, which is really cool to think about, in my opinion. From my perspective, I think it's pretty cool. And I find it so funny how far they actually went with this symbolism. I really appreciated that. Shift Up, fantastic job. Very happy with you. But let's add a little more to this, a little more spice to this. So one that's probably controversial is going to be Lily. Lily is obviously short for Lilith. They don't call her Lilith in the game, but it's just obvious that Lily is in general short for Lilith. And Lily is not a biblical figure. Lily is, if I am understanding this properly, Lilith is a character from some sort of Jewish mysticism that was believed to be Adam's, and this is, well, let me explain it first. She was believed to be Adam's first wife, but she was too combative and wouldn't listen to Adam or follow anything that Adam would say. And then so they separated, and Adam went with Eve, who was far more cooperative, we'll say. Now, Lilith is only ever mentioned in the Jewish Talmud, I don't know how to say it. She's not in the Christian Bible. From the Christian worldview, like, well, actually, just objectively, I think Lilith was not real, or at the very least, she was absolutely not, Adam's first wife. That's, that is literally no evidence whatsoever that would have been the case. And logically, it doesn't make any sense either, but that's kind of besides the point. Anyways, she's just from Jewish mysticism, okay? But what's so interesting to me is with the naming scheme here, Adam, Eve, and Lily, their personalities very perfectly fit the nature of the people/characters that they are referencing. So Adam and Lily are very combative with each other. They butt heads a lot. Lily doesn't like to just take orders from Adam. She likes to step up and replace Adam in certain things. She'll guide Eve in some parts of the story. They butt heads a lot. So the relationship between Adam and Lilith and the Talmud or whatever, it's pretty dead on right there. Maybe not as extreme, I guess, but it's similar. And then Adam and Eve is a much different relationship. They get along very well. Eve follows Adam's guidance. She puts a lot more faith in him and trusts what he says and does, and they're far more cooperative together. So the naming scheme with the three main characters was totally on point, even down to the dynamics between the three of them. It was fantastic, I would say. There's, good attention to detail there. And then we have a few other cool references. So we have a character named Francis, and this one's a little on the nose because I'm pretty sure he's literally just named after the Pope, Pope Francis. And he is extremely devout. He's probably the most devout character that you come across in the entire game. He's just an NPC, but he is extremely devout. Then we have a Naytiba named Abaddon. He's a demon mentioned in the Book of Revelation, and he basically summons these swarms of locusts. Then we have Belial, which is, I want to say, a Hebrew or Greek word in the Bible used to Belial in the Bible is not a person, but the word Belial means I don't remember exactly. It means something like evil or malice or something like that, which is perfectly embodied by Belial, the boss in this game, who is the most malicious boss that you fight. And Eve says that after you finish fighting Belial for the first time, she says that she felt the strongest emotions that she had felt fighting an Naytiba up to that point, and it was full of malice. Then on another one, there is, I think it's Demigorgon. I don't remember how you say it. I don't know if that name is actually relevant, but there's a biblically accurate angel Naytiba. I think I said this earlier, but I kind of hate the term biblically accurate angel because the common interpretation of an angel is fairly accurate usually, but there's a lot of different types of angels. If you want to know about them, I recommend Wendigoon's video about angelology. It's a really interesting video, even if you're not a Christian. But yeah, this Naytiba basically looks as that was described. Also, the word angel is used a lot. They refer to Eve as an angel, and all of the other angels from the airborne force squads and whatever, they're all referred to as angels, and they're these people that, were specially trained up in the colony, I assume by Mother Sphere, I don't know, or components of Mother Sphere, or I should say representatives of Mother Sphere. I don't really know. We don't really know the details of all of that. But that's just another thing, is that they're referring to these special people from God as angels who are going to protect them. So there's another reference there. Another one is the number 7. So Eve comes from Airborne Force Squad number 7. Of course, you probably know that the number 7 is an extremely important number in the Bible because, obviously in the book of Genesis recounts God took 7 days to create the earth. Well, I should really say it took 6 days to create the earth and everything on it. And then the 7th day was a day of rest. I've also talked about that as well, the difference between the number 6 and the number 7. And I think it was my Quran's on Arc video for the index novels, and how 6 basically represents this sort of concept of perfect machine-like efficiency that excludes rest. And 7 is the perfect full number that takes in account rest because it's a necessary thing for humanity. It's a necessary for the mind, body, and soul, whereas 6 disregards rest. If you want to know more about that, you can watch Jonathan Pajot's video on the meaning of the number 666. So obviously Eve being in the 7th Airborne Force Squadron was absolutely intentional. Another one, and this is a total shot in the dark. This is an absolute shot in the dark. I don't think this was intentional, but Lily I believe she comes from Airborne Force Squad number 4. That probably means something. The only thing I could think of is that it represents the 4 corners of the earth, and people think, oh, that means the Bible's flat earth. No, that's not what that means at all. It means one at the top and bottom axis and one on the left and right of the equator. That's what that means, okay? It does not mean flat earth. All right, get that out of your head. But yeah, in the book of Revelation, it states that I believe 4 angels, I don't remember if it's the archangels or not, but 4 angels will be at the 4 corners of the world. And that is the only thing I could think of as to why Lily would be from the 4th Airborne Force Squad. Another thing, speaking of archangels, is the name, Adam's original name, was Raphael Marx. Raphael is an archangel, and I'm assuming Marx is just a reference to the Book of Mark. And I guess maybe Raphael Marx just sounded better than Raphael Mark. I think it does. Marx sounds more like a last name, I guess, than just Mark. That's the best I got. I think that was probably intentional. Admittedly, I don't really know much about the Archangel Raphael. He only appears in, I don't remember the name of the book, but he appears in one of the books from the Apocrypha, which is a part of the Catholic Bible and not the Protestant Bible. So that's why I don't know much about him. But I imagine that's probably what that's referencing. And then the last one I want to mention is there is this location in the wasteland. It is a cave with a large pond. And in the center of the pond, there is this little plop of land. And on this piece of land, there are like 2 trees or whatever. And then there is this glistening fruit. They're grapes. And the grapes, they're glimmering. They have this sparkle to them, this intentional sparkle to them. And when I saw it, I immediately thought, okay, this is the tree of knowledge. Wait, maybe it could be the tree of life as well, because the tree of knowledge, the fruit that is usually representative of the tree of knowledge is an apple, which is what Adam and Eve, it's obviously, we don't know if they ate an apple or not, but that's what's used in Christian imagery, is that of an apple. So if these are grapes, then maybe that means this is the tree of life. Here's the reason that I think, this is totally probably not what was intended, but I'm going to overanalyze it anyways, just in case I'm right. So, when you walk into this cave, first of all, this cave is perfectly peaceful. Okay, get that. It's perfectly peaceful. There are no enemies inside the cave. There are only enemies immediately outside of the cave. And then there are these trees with this glimmering, shining fruit. This, in my head, listen to me, hear me out. This could be representative of the Garden of Eden. Okay. And then from these trees, here's what blew my mind, is when I walked into this cave, I was like, oh, look at that. Look at those glimmering grapes. And then you can't interact with it. You cannot interact with it. You can interact with so many things in this game. You cannot interact with these grapes. Even though they're glowing and they look like totally you should be able to interact with it. You cannot grab them. You cannot cut them. You cannot do anything to these grapes. Grapes. I'm so sorry. I just said grapes. Oh my goodness. Grapes. So you can't do anything to them. You cannot interact with them whatsoever. But they're glowing and they're tempting. I walked up to it and I was like, I have to be able to do something with this. I have to grab it. I have to cut it or something, right? But you can't do anything. You can't do anything to it. So I thought, okay, if there is this fruit that's in this tree that is in this peaceful area that just immediately made me think of the tree of knowledge. This fruit is glowing like it's extremely tempting and it made me want to interact with it, but I was unable to interact with it. Maybe because it's forbidden. It's tempting, but it's forbidden. And that place is a peaceful place with no monsters. Listen to this. Now, Adam and Eve, when Adam and Eve sinned, they are kicked out of the Garden of Eden, and then they bear the curse of sin, and they can no longer live the perfectly peaceful lives that they were able to in the Garden of Eden. Okay, so when you leave this cave, you are immediately met with Natiba that are right outside of the cave. I guess if you kill them before you go in, then they're not going to be there. But hypothetically, if you didn't, they would be out there as soon. So theoretically, if you ate the fruit, if you interacted with this tempting fruit, you would be kicked out of this peaceful area and you would go outside and you would be met with horrible, disgusting, grotesque Natiba that want to kill you. And that is the punishment for disobeying God's command of not eating the fruit. What do you think? Am I right? Am I right? Did I read into that like way too much? Did I just totally overanalyze this? Oh my goodness, I thought this video was going to be short, and then now it's an hour and 54 minutes into this recording. All of that to just say that I think this game put a lot of attention into this detail of being consistent with this Christian symbolism, with the names of really the names of everything, and a lot of these locations, and then the way the story unfolds by the end of it all. It's all way more meaningful than I expected it to be, and I was very impressed by it, and I would love to see more stuff like that. I love symbolism in art, and I wish there was more of it that was done seriously like this was. And oh, by the way, I didn't even talk about all of the Greek statues and sculptures that are plastered all throughout this game. There's a ton that you can probably get from that I don't know much about Greek history or mythology or anything, so I didn't really know what most of it meant. But if you're into that, and if you're for some reason extremely into that and you've played this game and you're watching this video, please inform me of your knowledge. But I don't think there's going to be a person like that, unfortunately. I wish there were. But there was a lot of that plastered throughout the game, so I'm probably missing out on a bit in regards to that. But to get back to my point, the symbolism and imagery in this game was outstanding. I really loved it. I really appreciated it. And that's one of many reasons why I really just want another game. I've said it a billion times. I've said it a gorillion times even in this video. But that's how I feel. That's how I feel. And this is a rambling video that I did not expect to make, but I actually got the second ending where you do take Adam's hand. I did the other one first where you don't take his hand. I finished that, I don't know, 4 hours ago, as of recording this right now. And I was kind of on a bit of a high, and I was like, oh, I really want to talk about this game. I don't have anyone to talk about this game with because I don't know anyone that's played it yet. But now I think I've got it all out of my system, maybe for now at least. And overall, I've already said this, but I really did think that this game was phenomenal. Yes, I could nitpick some things. I would have liked for there to have been more character interactions, maybe a little bit. I guess I kind of wish we could have gotten to know the characters just a little bit better, but it makes sense why we didn't. In a future game, I'd like to see more engagements between the main party, because I kind of felt like there wasn't really a ton between them outside of what I stated in this video, and I would have liked to have seen more of that. I think that leaves a lot of room for improvement in a sequel. But, you know, all I really have for complaints are just nitpicks. I guess I hated the quicksand in the Great Desert, and I hated the lurkers. Those were not a fun enemy. That's about all I've got. There's things you can nitpick. You can probably, you know, nitpick the story and some of the logistical things in the story, or things that don't really add up or make as much sense. I'm sure you could. I hate doing stuff like that. I don't think that's fun. I think that sucks the fun out of everything. A lot of stories that I like probably have a lot of holes in them, but they do things that I perceive as being like big risks, right? A lot of times I think if you want to take a big risk, you probably have to sacrifice some technical things. You have to, you know, when you're writing something that's not safe, you're probably going to make mistakes that are going to annoy people that are overly perfectionist about things. And it is what it is. I hate nitpicking. I think it's a waste of time, and I think it ruins a lot of things for people and their experiences with art and media. Criticism, you know, valid, fair, critical feedback is a great thing. But I do think people should judge art based off of how much good it does, not how little bad it does. Personally, I think that's a really good approach to take, and that's the approach that I try to take. I had a blast with this game. I would go as far as saying that this game borders on being a masterpiece, if not being a masterpiece, at least, you know, subjectively for me. And I just really enjoyed my time with it. But you know what? I think I'm going to have to wrap it up here. I've said all that I think I've wanted to say, and I do not want to hit the 2-hour mark in this recording because this was not supposed to be this long. So if you listened all the way to the end, which I don't know why you would, I really appreciate you for doing so. As always, let me know if you played this game, what you thought about it in the comments. I always respond in some way, either with the little heart or I'll say something. You know, I don't like to ignore comments. So absolutely let me know of any thoughts that you had. And as always, I hope you have a wonderful, I said wonderful, day, night, week, month, year, decade, life.